Welcome to the Mind Gut Conversation, your go to podcast for exploring cutting edge ideas in optimal health and the fascinating science of mind gut microbiome interactions. I'm your host, Emeran. Here we bring together thought leaders, groundbreaking researchers, and innovative practitioners to share insights that can transform the way you understand your body, mind, and overall well being. Whether you're a health enthusiast, a curious learner, or a professional in the field, this podcast is your gateway to unlocking the secrets of the mind-gut connection. So settle in, open your mind, and join us as we journey into the science and stories shaping the future of health. In the latest episode of the Mind-Gut Conversation podcast, I sit down with Joel Salatin, a self-declared Christian libertarian environmentalist, capitalist, lunatic farmer who has been featured in Michael Pollan's The Omnivore's Dilemma, in Food Inc., and in Revolution Food. In the episode, we talk about the negative impacts of the current industrialized farming model on the health of people, the environment, and farm animals, and how his regenerative organic approach is avoiding these negative effects. We also talk about how he has created a dynamic ecosystem consisting of fertile soil, healthy animals, and plants with the highest nutrient value. And how this has enabled him never to use a pound of chemical fertilizer, pesticides, insecticides, or herbicides over the past 50 years, and has never given any drugs to any of his farm animals, including antibiotics. Finally, we talk about the crucial role of the microbes in the soil and the gut in mediating the health benefits of his regenerative organic farming approach. Joel has written 14 books to date, lectures around the world on land healing and local food systems, and is running Polyface Farms, which he calls the diversified grass-based, beyond organic, direct marketing farm. Welcome to the show, Joel. You are probably the most well-known farmer, particularly in the regenerative organic field. So I would say you don't need an introduction. But then there's still a lot of people who are completely oblivious to what you do and what's so important. Maybe there's going to be more awareness now with this discussion, this whole Make America Healthy Again movement. The one good thing about this is I think it will stimulate the discussion. So even people that do not.
Yeah, I agree.
So let me start off with this. I sort of picked some quotes from online, and so you're the self-proclaimed, and I like this word, Christian libertarian, environmentalist, capitalist, lunatic farmer. And you've been featured in many documentaries, Michael Pollan's Omnivore Dilemma and Food Inc. and Revolution Food. You've written 14 books. I don't know how you find the time to do this, and have editing a Grass Farmer magazine. And on top of that, you lecture around the world. I mean, actually, as a matter of fact, the way we met was in Zurich a few months ago at a conference from soil to soul, where I attended a 4 or 5 hour seminar that you gave. So besides lecturing around the world and writing books, you're running also a very successful business, Polyface Farms. And that's been called, or you call it, the diversified grass-based beyond organic direct marketing farm in Virginia. So I like these multiple word terms so that just illustrates that. So you're not a one-dimensional person. You're more like a philosopher who integrates a lot of different things. Um, so if you want to comment is, so how did you get to that point in your life and being successful in so many areas and having a major impact on young people, and we can talk about this in just a minute. How did you start this?
Yeah, well, I have deep roots in this. My grandfather, my dad's dad, was a charter subscriber to Rodale's Organic Gardening and Farming magazine when it came out in what 1945. I think it started right there at the end of World War II, and he he's had compost piles, and he took the non-chemical. He never farmed full time. He had a very large garden though, and an octagonal and eight-sided chicken house on the corner of it. And so my dad got a love of farming and non-chemical approach from him, and so he wanted to farm, but never did full time really. Um, we came here in 1961 when my dad was 39. I was 4, and and started with this gullied rock pile. And dad was an accountant. Mom was a school teacher, health and phys ed teacher. The off farm jobs paid for the mortgage. You know that story. And so in about 10 or 12 years, the farm was paid for. We were mortgage free, but we didn't have a going concern, but we had done a lot of experimenting. We always said dad was organic before Rachel Carson wrote Silent Spring, and so we I grew up with all these experiments, and one of the most poignant memories of my childhood. I don't know how old I was. Might have been 6 or 7 or 8, something like that. But one Sunday afternoon, Dad said, "Let's take a drive. I want to go see this farm." And so we went, I don't know, an hour away somewhere. I don't even know where it was, but this farmer had portable portable shelters, and I don't remember whether it was pigs or lambs or chickens or what it was. But what I remember was coming home and Dad almost levitating with this idea of mobile infrastructure. That was just revolutionary because he had already read and been acquainted with Andre Voisin, the French grass productivity, the guy who developed rational or rotational grazing. But but if you move these animals around all the time, they need shelter. They need control. They need this, and so to mesh up the mobile shelter and infrastructure with mobile livestock on pasture was a breakthrough. And from that day on, he developed a very large shade mobile, big enough for 100 cows. Developed a portable veal calf barn. We had about 4 milk cows, and the veal calves milked them. So he had this portable trailer, and he'd tie up the cow, let 2 calves out. They would nurse, go to the next quadrant, tie up the cow, let 2 calves out. By the time he got all the round to the fourth cow, the first 2 were done. They jumped back in, and the cow was turned out. And then portable chickens, portable rabbits. We were experimenting with all of this portability, and then another big breakthrough was in the early 70s. So I'm 13 years old or so, and 14, and we were feeding the cows through a haystack, and every Saturday we had to clean out the manure so they wouldn't get filthy. And so this started, and we would start feeding hay, around Christmas or before, and so every Saturday when Dad was off of work, my brother and I and he would go out and we'd shovel the manure into the manure spreader and spread it. And what we started noticing was that what we spread before about the middle of February didn't seem to do anything, but what we spread after the middle of February was like we painted the pasture green. And well, what's the difference? It's the same material, same field, same everything, same cows. What's the difference? And realized that what we spread early on the dormant frozen ground, while the soil microbes were hibernating, by the time spring came, it leached away. It didn't go into the soil, and so that gradually developed into the bedding idea, what I now call the carbonaceous diaper, where we bed the cows when we feed them hay on deep bedding, and it gets up to over a meter deep, and and then the that's anaerobic because the cows are heavy, tromping out the oxygen. And then we put the pigs in. We put corn in it. The corn ferments. Then when the cows come out, we put the pigs in. The pigs then seek the fermented corn and churn it all up and convert it from anaerobic to aerobic compost. And then we spread that on the fields. And that then really that was like the final, I don't know, catalyst for moving our fertility forward when we really when we stopped the wastage or the slippage of any of the manure resource, and we're able to leverage it with compost.
Yeah, this is, I mean, attending your seminar. I mean, for the listener who has not seen these pictures, this may require some additional explanation. What's the advantage of moving the animals around and not keeping them in separate places as
Right.
is traditional farming?
Sure. So in nature, if you look at the wildebeest right now, the largest herbivore herds in the world are the wildebeest on the Serengeti. And what you notice is they don't stay in one place; they move. Well, that's the way all herbivores in nature: the caribou, the bison on the American plain, the aurochs, the big, up in that were up in Europe, during prehistoric times. They moved. They didn't stay in one place, and they moved primarily due to predation. Predators, kept the herds on the move, not stampeding, but just on the move. Also, the fly cycle, which is about a 4-day cycle from initial egg to pupa to new fly, is about a 4-day cycle on a fly. That also, kept them moving because they wanted to stay away from the flies. And so nature had mechanisms to keep these herds moving. Well, the beauty of that is that when they moved, it gave where they had just um, pruned. I like the word pruning more than grazing. Where they had just pruned, it gave that a rest period. And so grass grows in a sigmoid curve, an S curve. Starts slow, then it grows real fast, then it goes into senescence. It's kind of got three growth cycles. It begins, then it goes real fast, then it slows down and stops, and turns into senescence. And so, this choreography across the prairie, across the grasslands, does is that it allows the herbivores to prune, which freshens, which gets all that old growth off, and then the forage can jump again in that juvenile fast growth curve, and the animals don't come back until it's back up at that, toward senescence again. And by keeping the grass in that rapid between those two um, um, growth curves, or growth, tipping points, by keeping the grass there, it actually grows way more than obviously if it's kept, mowed short, or if it's abandoned and allowed to just grow into lignified carbon and sit there. Both extremes, overgrazing and undergrazing, or over pruning and under pruning, are both of those reduce the amount of photosynthetic activity that converts sunlight into biomass, and is the foundation of the carbon cycle.
I love to listen to you because this is like a science lecture. It's not really like a farmer talking to me, but it's with a lot of in-depth knowledge, and I'm sure the technique that you have developed, like the intervals where you move animals, and I mean,
Right.
this is all basically dependent on the science of it. I mean, it's not just
Yeah.
random.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of science. There's also some art to it. It's not, there's objective stuff, and then there's subjective stuff too, and so you do things sometimes. For example, uh, sometimes we over rest on purpose to stimulate additional species of vegetation. and so you diversify your technique on it, but essentially the advent of electric fence, we don't have a wolf, we don't have lions, but we do have electric fence. So the
Mm,
electric fence, in essence, becomes our predator
mm,
to to move the animals and to control the animals and define them. So every day, roughly around 4 o'clock, we move the herd from paddock to paddock. We call them paddocks, um, but paddock to paddock. So every day they just get enough um, enough of a plateful to feed them for one day, and then they move on to another spot. And what this technique does is, like in our county, Augusta County here in Virginia, with our rainfall, climate, frost dates, all that, the average farm here in our county gets 80 cow days. So a cow day is what one cow will eat in a day. If I took all the food that you're going to eat today, put it on a plate, that would be, one person day of food. Okay. So a cow day is what one cow will eat in a day. And so in our county, the average is 80 80 cow days per acre. In other words, an acre will feed roughly 80 cows
mm.
for one day in a year, or one cow for 80 days in a year. Uh, and so that's our county average. Here we average nearly 400 cow days per acre, and
Wow.
we haven't bought a bag of chemical fertilizer, and we haven't planted a seed in over 60 years. So this is a restoration. This is a restoration of the historic prairie, and it begs, you know, appreciation that 500 years ago, North America produced more food than it does today, even with John Deere tractors, chemical fertilizers, glyphosate and GMOs, and name your, cornfields, and irrigation. North America produced more food 500 years ago than it does today. Now, it was not all eaten by people,
Mm.
because we had a couple 100 million bison. We had 2 million wolves that needed 2 pounds of 20 pounds of meat a day per wolf. That's 40 million pounds of meat just for the wolf. We had 200 million beavers who ate they ate more more herbage than all the people in North America today.
Ah,
We had flocks of birds. Um, John James Audubon, uh, the great naturalist Audubon, in the early 1800s, sat under a tree in Massachusetts and recorded in his diary. He said, "I couldn't see the sun for 3 days because the flock of birds blocked out the sun." That was passenger pigeons, and of course they're extinct now. But that was that. I mean, imagine a flock of birds blocking out the sun for 3 days. Even if he was exaggerating,
yeah,
uh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's still a massive flock of birds, long before Tyson and Purdue had chicken houses. And so it I think it begs study to appreciate that historically the abundance here was actually more than it is today, and without the degradation, the soil degradation, water degradation, aquifer depletion, all the things that we see uh, today.
Yeah, it's amazing that nature basically has come up with this system to feed all these animals. I mean, that was the goal
Yes,
of nature. I mean, not
yes,
and a small number of people, that sort of were embedded into this.
yes, yes. It was a massive, massive number of animals and predators. The wolves. I mean, the Lewis and Clark expedition, when they went out across the what were they in 1806 or something, 1807. Anyway, the Lewis and Clark expedition that went out across and went to the Pacific for the first time, they said that they could not go 1 mile without encountering a bear.
Wow. Wow.
Now imagine going from St. Louis to the Pacific Ocean and encountering a bear every single mile. I mean, that's just And I mean, and that's all they saw. I mean, that's not the bears they didn't see. That was just the bears they
Amazing.
encountered. Yeah, it's almost it almost boggles the imagination.
Yeah, so these sort of self-sustaining systems in nature that were able um, to feed everybody that was on in this land. So we have really degraded them tremendously. I mean, we've gotten rid of a lot of these animals. We've gotten like all these natural techniques of recycling and rotating and the synergy between different animals and the soil. Um, so we've essentially destroyed this. We're feeding a lot of people now, but
Mhm.
at a tremendous cost. I mean, I think it's sort of a general trend really of modern civilization that it's the same in medicine. We keep people alive into their 80s and 90s, but at a tremendous cost because the environment has been so much degraded and poisoned, and that it takes the medicines, um, to keep people alive that long. People always talk about longevity, healthy longevity, but it's an illusion because it's not a natural phenomenon in our society. If you go to other places of the world, you go to the Amazon rainforest, some of these people, the indigenous people, they live into their 80s and 90s without any medication
Yeah,
because they still live in that natural environment where everything is intact.
yeah. Longevity. Um, I mean, longevity's been around a long, long time, uh, and but it was not cut short by cancer and heart disease and things like these, what we call the non-infectious chronic disease.
Yeah.
And but the beauty of people. I mean, I I don't believe the world's overpopulated. I think we lack imagination and care, because we can duplicate. We can absolutely duplicate. I mean, so we replace bison with cows. We replace birds with chickens. They're birds too. So our system has, it has the basics of a natural system, but unfortunately, the way farmers and ranchers and agriculturalists have have interacted with the ecology has been disrespectful of the patterns that made it abundant. Like I said, here on our farm, we get almost 5 times the county average of production per acre, with pasture, versus the average farm. Wow, because they just put their cows out on a given spot. They leave them there all the time, and all summer the grass is about an inch tall. It never. Well, what that means is when we get a rain, the rain all runs off.
Mhm.
At our place, the rain goes in. In 1961, when our family came here, our average organic matter is like, it's humus. It's decomposing carbon in the soil. Um, and an agronomist would take issue with that, but we don't need to be really, really technical right now. Organic matter is from decomposing material in the soil. Our organic matter on our farm averaged 1%. Today, it's a little over 8%. Well, every 1% of organic matter in the soil holds 20,000 gallons of water per acre. So we've gone up 7%. 7 times 20,000 is 140,000 gallons of water per acre that we can hold today that we couldn't hold back in 1961. Well, think about what that does in a drought. It means that the shoulders of a drought extend. You get green a month longer, and when the rains come, it it responds a lot faster. And it means when you get a lot of rain, excess rain in a flood situation, it means that you don't have as much flooding because the soil can absorb more water. And so there's these, and of course, if the landscape stays more hydrated, then that grows more vegetation, which releases more bacteria to create little microbe condensation units for evapotranspiration to condense around to help cloud formation. So you maintain the entire hydration cycle. Uh, when you increase the organic matter, and so this could absolutely be done. I mean, right now, goodness, the fires are in everybody's mind right now. Imagine if all of that vegetation were used either in grazing, both grazing and chipping, with chippers to take the dead trees, the diseased trees, the kind of thin them out so they're not quite so tight and less stressed, um, and that we're done with composting so that we replaced all of our chemical fertilizer with compost and brought our organic matter back up to original levels like it was pre-European. It would mitigate all sorts of things. The weather cycles would be um, less anomaly, and there would be all sorts of good things happen. So our weak link is not money, it's not knowledge, it's not even too many people. Our weak link is constipation of imagination.
Yeah, so why do you think that is? Is this because the profit? I mean, I would think that like your farm is more profitable, should be more profitable than having to buy all these chemicals, the fertilizer and the pesticides and insecticides that are used in modern farming. So why has this not become the standard in farming or in agriculture? Why is
Yeah.
it the model?
Yeah, it's a profound question, and I would simply nuance it this way. We're not necessarily more profitable, but we are more resilient. And the problem is that the profitability equation so far has been a matter of exploitation and convenience. And I would just say a short-term worldview. What can I get today? Rather than a resilience uh, into the future. We have sacrificed resilience for efficiency. And of course, we saw that really come into play in 2020 when all the store shelves went empty, because the food system does not have much resilience built in. Oh, it's efficient. It's efficient as long as everything's
Yeah, yeah,
cranking
yeah.
fine. But as soon as there's a monkey wrench in the system, then it's extremely fragile because there's no resilience. The other thing is that we have purposely substituted people for equipment and machinery, and and tax. I don't want to get off on a big rabbit trail here, but in the U.S., um, tax law and government regulation has a lot to say about people that it doesn't say about your tractor. In other words, your tractor, if you abuse your tractor, well, you can depreciate it faster and buy a new one and expense it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
But people you can't do that for. And so when you start substituting management for pharmaceuticals, machinery, equipment, and buildings, when you substitute people and you become people centric as opposed to depreciable infrastructure centric, it has massive um, uh, tax and regulatory consequences for the farm. So I don't say that we're inherently now. Are we profitable? Yes, we are, but that profitability hinges primarily on our innovative direct marketing and getting the retail dollar more than it does on actually saving money. Now, the one place where it really does make a huge difference in profitability is the controlled grazing. with the herbivore, the sheep, the goat, the cow, where you're moving them all the time. That definitely does increase your profitability tremendously, especially at scale, because it doesn't. Every herd requires a front fence, a back fence, and a check fence, so that if they go through the front fence, they don't go all the way to the end of the field. And so you have three cross fences that you're leapfrogging. They all need a water trough. They all need a mineral box, and so it takes the same amount of time to move a herd of 500 as it does 100, because the cost is in you being there with them, and so for the herbivore, this controlled grazing is an incredibly scalable thing.
I've seen a few in the past. I've seen a few examples much smaller and much less elaborate than your systems. Um, and you may know these people, Paul Greaves
Yeah.
in
Uh-huh.
Temecula,
Hmm.
with his chicken, and I guess he must have adopted your system of moving the chickens around on
Right.
on his land, um, and also. Ryland from Kiss the Ground from this foundation. I mean, so there's a few individuals that are pursuing this path as well, and
Yes,
um, which and they also talk about. I mean, when you talk to Paul, it's also it's profitable. It's not that you need subsidies from the government
that's right. That's
to
right. Yeah, we don't take any subsidies. I don't even know where the government offices are. We don't even go down there at all. So, but I would say, I would simply caution people, it's not inherently profitable. You'll still have to run a sharp pencil, be a good businessman, good marketer, good financial, these things. But it's like somebody asked me one time. He said, um, well, is it profitable? I said, well, even a McDonald's is not necessarily profitable. I mean, there have been some McDonald's franchisees that couldn't make it. Even with a brand as popular as that. And by the way, this is not an endorsement of McDonald's.
yeah,
Um,
yes.
I'm just saying, normally those restaurants work, but once in a while, one doesn't work. It's in the wrong location, bad franchisee. He's not a good business person, whatever. And so there's nothing about this that guarantees a profit. I would say though that because it is way more resilient, the chances of handling shocks is so much better that, yes, if all is equal, profitability is a little more, whatever, guaranteed, simply because simply because you ride out shocks. We don't we have 1,000 head of cattle here, and we don't have a vet bill. I mean, we just don't have a vet bill.
Uh,
Now that doesn't mean we've never lost one. Okay, but to have that many head and not have a pharmaceutical program, a vaccine program, a health. I mean, most people spend $10 to $30 a year per cow on some sort of medication, healthcare, vaccine, whatever, and we don't do any of that. And so you have 1,000 head, and suddenly you're $20,000 or $30,000 to the good, just on that element.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at it on even a larger scale, so you talked about the health of the animals, but the benefits of that kind of agriculture obviously transcends the animals. I mean, it's the health of
Yeah.
humans. If I look at
Yeah.
this, what you also referred to earlier, this current chronic non-contagious disease epidemic that we're experiencing, like all the major diseases which have been increasing the last 75 years and continue to increase. People are not dying from these diseases anymore because the pharmaceutical industry has developed ways of keeping people alive despite those diseases. But if you look at the impact that it has both on the health of the animals and on the health of humans, it's a huge impact, which is
Oh,
not necessarily your own profit, but it's
right.
the benefit for the society.
Yeah. The studies linking in I mean our specialty is pastured livestock. When you start looking at the benefits, I'll just give you an example. We participated several years ago, 12 of us in the pastured egg business, participated together to send our eggs for a nutrient analysis at a lab. And I'll just pick one. Folic acid. It's important for pregnant women, especially folic acid. The USDA, the official nutrition label on a dozen eggs. If you go get it at the store, it'll say there's 48 micrograms of folic acid per egg. And our eggs here from our farm tested 1,038.
Wow.
So this is not a 10% difference. This is these are major differences. Omega 3, omega 6 fatty acids on our chicken, are I can't think of the number right offhand, but it's like a fifth. The ratio is 5 times different than you would find in a regular store, because grass, of course, our chickens eat GMO-free grain as well, but that grass that they eat, the clover and the bugs and the grasshoppers that they eat, um, it is enough of a whatever a tonic to really change the omega 3 omega 6 fatty acid profile. And of course that's a huge marker for inflammation and cancers
Yeah,
and things
yeah.
like that. So yeah, the differences are. I mean beef, grass finished beef averages 300% more riboflavin, for example, than grain finished beef. And so and well, what's the importance of riboflavin? Well, riboflavin is known as the calming fatty acid. Uh,
Hmm.
and so, you know, could it be that um, some of the animosity, some of the violence in our country is a result of people being short of riboflavin, because everything is confined and just fed grain with no sunshine, no grass, no salad bar, no exercise, no nothing. We say you are what you eat. You also are what you eat eats. And
Yeah.
and and if we're eating stressed sedentary confinement, is it any wonder that our bodies are suffering from ingesting stressed sedentary confinement protocols?
Yeah, so it shifts this whole discussion, which I often get. I mean, I'm promoting a largely plant-based diet, not vegetarian, not vegan, um, but I'm not dogmatic about it, and certainly not religious like some vegan people are. And so the discussion should really be shifted towards, what I mean, how the food that you eat, what did it, I mean, how was this food grown, and what did your food eat basically? With these and I have these childhood memories. So I grew up in the Bavarian southern part of Germany
Mm,
in
hmm.
the
Yes.
foothills of the Alps. And when we went up into the Alpine meadows, the cows up there eating the Alpine grass and the Alpine flowers.
Hmm.
And they also, and they sell the milk from these cows so it affects the milk as well, not just the meat.
Yes.
Everything that you get from animals, from farm animals, is affected by this in a in a in a big way. So it's not the question, are you a carnivore or vegetarian? It's
Right.
what's contained in the food that you eat.
Yes, yes. What's the provenance? There's a study being done right now. It's been several years in the making by the Bionutrient Food Association here in the U.S. Dan Kittredge is the guru of that outfit, and they've been studying various um, nutritional components of foodstuffs to see what the difference actually is between one carrot and another, one broccoli and another. And the first one they tested was carrots, and they found that so they went and they bought, I don't know what, 400 different carrots, from different people, different places. And what they found was the difference between the worst one and the best one was you would have to eat almost 100 carrots of the worst one to get the same nutrition as 1 carrot of the best one.
Wow.
Well, they thought that they it was so. I mean, they thought there would be a difference, but they didn't think it would be that much. And so they thought, well, maybe we have an anomaly here. So they tested broccoli, and the same thing happened with broccoli. And so they realized that they were really onto something here. And so the next thing they decided to test was beef. Let's test beef. Let's do an animal. And they're now 2 years into this. They've got a lot of data, and what they found is that again, the differences are very, very profound. But the single biggest arbiter of difference in nutrition, and they're measuring 150 different metrics. Um, and what they're finding is that the differences have nothing to do with breed, nothing to do with climate, nothing to do with organic or not. The difference is how many different plants did the animal eat?
No. Okay.
Different kinds of plants. and and so it goes up sharply toward about 14 different kinds of plants, and then it kind of gentles off a little bit, the graph, the rise in the nutrient. So this, it's like 14. If an animal is routinely eating 14 different kinds of plants, that's like a benchmark. And of course, in a feedlot, the animals basically get corn and soybeans, maybe a little bit of small grain, oats or something, but that's it. There's no, maybe some alfalfa, but it's a very, very limited thing. But when we go out on our pastures, and I appreciated you mentioned the alpine, the cows ate the grass and the flowers. You
In the
said that's
farm.
wonderful. Yeah, the flower that when we go out in our pastures, I can usually stand in one spot and pick at least a dozen, maybe 15 different types of plants just without even stepping anywhere. You've got clovers and grasses and forbs, weeds, plantain, all sorts of things, and so it's that variety that is so valuable. And you begin to realize very quickly, well, that's the same thing we're learning with the human microbiome.
Yeah, I
Uh,
was just going to say it. It's exactly like 35 different types of plant-based foods a week, So it takes this variety of intake to see a change in the microbiome in a positive direction. Yeah. So it kind of emphasizes, I mean, nature is essentially a a a series of ecosystems, and they all belong and they all behave along the same guidelines or formulas. It's always diversity, and richness and variety, in every ecosystem that you look at. It's
yes,
similar.
yes, that's right.
We have destroyed a lot of those because people have not paid attention to it. It's a lot of ignorance. I mean, it's
Yeah, there is, and I think a lot of that is because in the West, not in the East, but in the West, um, we, the Greco-Roman disconnected, segregated, we view life as fundamentally a um, a mechanical process
Mm.
rather than a biological process. And there is a huge difference between the mechanical and the biological. I mean, the biological responds. I mean, you can go out and you can hug your car all day, but it doesn't care at all that you're
Right.
hugging your car. But you can go out and hug your tomato plant or hug a cow, and it responds. It cares. And and so life, there are huge differences, and we have in the West, we have we have just come to this idea that life is as mechanically interchangeable as the bearing of a car or something else. And you and I know that that's not true. In fact, the soil has so many microbes in it. It has as many microbes in a handful of healthy soil as there are people on the face of the earth. And we've only cataloged 10% of them. 90% are unnamed and unknown. That's how little we know about the complexity, the dynamism, the life, the spontaneity, the biology of the soil. It's not just a car engine. It's not just an inert material. It's a very living, responding, dynamic organism that is the cousin to our own microbiome. I mean, these microbes are very similar, and their process is very similar because it's all about decomposition, energy storage, very very similar functionality between the two systems.
Yeah, and so those practices that that we talked about earlier that you use on your farm. I mean, we didn't really talk about it. I mean, they all benefit the soil microbiome, the
Yes,
diversity, um, because all this organic material that gets down
yes,
to the roots of the plants, and then the interaction of the microbes with the root system of the plants is a major driver of the health benefits of the plants. Like
yes.
the polyphenols and the vitamins and like all these things wouldn't be there. So now today we go to the supermarket and we buy these beautiful looking fruits and vegetables, but they're depleted in these health promoting molecules because they're no longer grow in that rich organic soil.
Yeah, that and many of them, especially strawberries and things like that, are even hydroponic. They're not even in any soil at all, and so yeah, we have generally we have approached this soil like a bunch of swashbuckling pirates, and we assume that if we don't understand it, well, then it must not be important if we don't understand it.
It's
The
just dirt. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's just dirt. Yeah.
it's just dirt. And the more we learn, the more we realize we don't know, and a lot. And when we do learn another nuance, we realize that that it's important. Every relationship in the soil, every piece of commerce and trade. Hey, I've got a molecule of molybdenum. I'll trade you with for that polysaccharide. That's what's happening at I call it the underground cafe. That's
Yeah.
happening at the end of the root hairs at the microscopic level. This exchange is going on. It's actually quite profound, but it's uh you know it it is the foundation of everything we see. And so everything we see, the trees, the house, the whatever, what do we have? Wood, um is all the food on our plate. Everything that we see is actually a manifestation of this complex biological relationship, this community of beings in the soil.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, this concept of interconnectedness, I mean it's the same as talking about ecosystems. It's phenomenal. I mean, it should be taught to children in kindergarten, because it is one of the most fundamental things that um, and like what you were saying, this depletion of the soil of microbes. Well, the same thing is happening in our guts.
Yes,
The vanishing microbes. Um, Marty Blazer read this great book about this. It's it's a reflection of what we do to the outside world.
yes,
It's a mirror image, and both the outside world and our own health are suffering from that. So
yes. Almost every disease, if you look at the gurus of the microbiome right now, almost they'll link almost every single disease. There's an indicator that's there's something in the microbiome is missing. There's a group of microbes somehow that's missing. And we see that in the study of autism. We see it in the study of autoimmune diseases. Everything, there's something missing. And so this variety thing is not to be taken lightly. It's a real deal. And I would suggest that for those people who are eating animal proteins, one of the best ways to get more variety in our microbiome is if you're going to eat eggs and cheese and meat, eat it from animals that have been eating a diversified diet,
Mhm.
because all those different plants bring in a different enzyme, a different vitamin, a different mineral. They're all bringing in a different thing, and so that is a way to create more complexity in your microbiome by eating things that have been eating a lot of different things.
How can the average consumer be sure that the kind of products that they buy? I mean, there's so much talk about everything now is organic, and um,
Yeah, well, it's not organic. Organic isn't the standard.
it,
Uh, so
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 how could the consumers? So I could, for example, order something from your farm directly.
Yes, yeah, we ship nationwide. I'm not trying to do a a commercial here, but I will tell you that the logistics of distribution in the last decade have fundamentally the the options that urban people have, and the literally the cost, even the carbon footprint of a box on your door, a box at your door that came by UPS, um, is actually smaller than sitting in your car idling, waiting to turn left into the shop, into the the grocery store, in a left hand turn lane, to get one bag of stuff or two bags of stuff. And so distribution has changed dramatically. So yes, there are great farms around the country, and yes, we're certainly happy to to ship. We ship every Tuesday and Wednesday, and and we're also glad to help you start until maybe you can find a local, we're glad to prime the pump, and until you start. But for a lot of people have actually tasted, never actually tasted this. And we know from Professor Provenza, out at Utah, that our taste buds recognize complexity, and so the juiciness and the our actual saliva function responds to this complexity,
Mhm,
and the complexity is what we're talking about here.
mhm, mhm.
And so the taste, the terroir, that this is in wine we talk about, but it's in other things as well. And so so our taste actually um, responds to that complexity. So, if you've never had this, if you've never tasted it, I encourage folks to see it at once. We had one little story. We had a lady in the store a while back. She had this little 6-year-old boy with her, or her son, and she was just distraught, a distraught mom. She said, and he was very small, and she said he's a picky eater. He just won't eat anything. And I mean, obviously she was concerned about his development and his health and everything. And so she bought eggs from us, and she called me the next week, and she said, "I can't fill him up. He's eating 6 eggs a day." And he's just eating and eating and eating. Well, I think his body was craving nutrition, and when he actually got it, not only did his taste buds respond, but he was feeling good. He was feeling satiated. And that's not the only story like that. We've had numerous like that, but it's exciting to see. You know, this isn't some ephemeral mystical thing out there that you can't actually viscerally participate in. You can taste it, you can smell it, you can see it, you can touch it.
Yeah, and
It's
it's kind of interesting, as you mentioned earlier with the wine tasting. So, people now, pretend they're connoisseurs or wine connoisseurs, and
yeah,
they
yeah,
get all these flavors and this fruit taste. And
yeah.
so, if you can do it with wine, why not do the same thing
Sure.
with other foods?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, think about the difference between a good like compost grown tomato versus one in the supermarket that's like cardboard. I mean, the differences are just beyond astounding. And think about apples you've had. You know, you've had apples
Hmm.
that just oh I want another one. You know, it's so good. And then you've had other apples that not good. And this is this is real. Trust. I would say I would tell people, trust yourself. You're not stupid, and you're not your judgment is effective and necessary.
Yeah, we often had this experience when we go to Europe, and I've heard it from other friends as well. You know, the like the tomato in Italy um, tastes different, looks the same, but it just tastes different. And
Yeah,
same with many other fruits and vegetables. I mean, they're just
that's right.
um, yeah. So I mean, we could go on for a long time. Maybe at some point I have to visit you in the farm and learn
Well,
more.
I hope you do. Please come. We have a 24/7, 365 open door policy. Anyone can come from anywhere in the world to see anything, anywhere, anytime, unannounced. That's our full 100% transparency policy, and it helps to keep us on our toes.
Wow, that's really wonderful. So let me ask with a end with a question. Are you a general question? Are you an optimist based on? I mean, you seem to be a very optimistic person because you see the success of what you do yourself and what. But on a national level, are you an optimist that we actually will improve our nutrition and our health, both the animal, the soil health, and the human
Yeah.
health, or do you think it's not going to happen?
Yeah, well, one of the things I don't do is prophesy, but I will tell you this that in general, the way I see people operating, I can't imagine what it would take as a culture to turn around our drug addiction, our Coca-Cola addiction, our Lunchables and Hot Pockets and McDonald's. I've always said when McDonald's starts losing money and shutting stores, we'll know we've as a culture we've tipped over that point. So in general, right now, I'm not real optimistic about the way farming, the way the general populace is going, but I'm very optimistic about what you as an individual can do for you and for your family. There are great farmers, great food available. You don't have to be stressed about everything that's going on, and my vision is to help people become hope and help when society becomes hopeless and helpless.
Mm,
That's
that's
our mandate.
Yeah, that's a really nice way of saying it. So for people that want to get in touch with you and learn more about this, is the website the Polyface
Yes.
Farm? Is that the best?
Polyface Farms, Polyface, the farm of many faces, Polyface. And if you just type in Poly, it'll probably pop right up. And the website is very comprehensive. It's got everything from seminars that we do here to events, gatherings, tours. Of course, there's a whole food product um, swag. You can get different things and see and you can see where I'll be. I travel a lot, and you can see my speaking schedule. If you have a friend that you say, hey, you ought to go hear this guy, you can see where I'm going to be on that as well. So it's a very eclectic, broad website, polyfacefarms.com, and be glad for you to visit.
Yeah, well, thanks so much, Joel. This was a really enlightening conversation. And as I say, I recommend people to go to your books and go to your website and learn more about this and spread the word. I mean, the more people jump on that bandwagon, the better it will be for the
Yes,
planet.
it sure will. Yes. Well, thank you very much for having me.
Okay, bye bye, Joel. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.